Survey says Minnesota film and video industry production revenues are up by 48% over the last 7 years. Janet says
that's good news. And we'll have more good news about the MacPhail Center for the Arts, the Minnesota Arts Directory, and an exciting series of workshops called The Piano and the Song.
Ruth MacKenzie, Brooke Portmann, Jim Schiller, Beth Burns, and Bill Juntunen will all be with us for Artifacts. Stay tuned. Well, it's a brand new year and a brand new season for Artifacts. Welcome. I'm Phill Lindsay from the Minneapolis Community Development Agency.
And I'm Janet Zahn with the Office of Film, Video, and Recording for the City of Minneapolis. And for those of you who've never seen this show before, well, stay with us and you'll get a good idea about what we're all about.
There may be a couple people. You'll find we talk with people in the film video industry, all types of performers and educators, people from all walks of life in the arts.
On this particular show, you'll hear a lot about the new economic impact study of the Minnesota film and video industry that was recently published by my office. And it won't be just facts and figures. We've got a great sampler video to show you.
Yeah, it's nice stuff. And I had the pleasure of going on location to the Plymouth Congregational Church in downtown Minneapolis, where we met with Ruth MacKenzie and Tom Linker, who both shed some light on the piano and the song. Ruth will be here along with Brooke Portmann, the producer of this three-part series.
Of course there's more, and you'll just have to keep watching to find out what's in store on the January 1996 edition of Artifacts.
But first, an economic impact fact.
It's not just Hollywood lights, camera, and action that make Minnesota a hotbed for film and video production. Every year, Minnesota's own homegrown film and video industry creates hundreds of corporate videos, television commercials, TV programs, music videos, and multimedia and interactive presentations for businesses and clients around the world. In fact, while movies like The Mighty Ducks and Grumpy Old Men bring an average of about $12 million in revenues to the state every year, Minnesota's own industry generated $219 million in revenues in 1994 alone. That, according to this economic impact study of the Minnesota film and video industry that was just released by my office a couple of weeks ago. And with me today to talk about the study is Bill Juntunen. Welcome, Bill.
Thank you.
Bill is the president of Juntunen Video Field and Post here in Minneapolis. Tell us a little bit about your business, Bill.
Well, we're a technical services facility for the film and video industry doing video production and post-production for producers. And we carry the services from independent field crews, single camera crews, through multi-camera field crews and live-to-tape studio production, digital online editing and offline editing, graphics and duplication. So it's quite a broad range of services, but they are tailored specifically to the producer in our industry.
And you say you've had a very busy quarter.
The fourth quarter has been wonderful. The year has been very good. We finished on target, although we had a little bump in the second quarter. But the year we're right almost exactly on our projections.
So, in fact, Juntunen Video is a small reflection of what the economic impact study said, which is that the business in town and in the state is doing very well as an industry.
Oh, I think there's no question about it. Our competitors and our clients, for the most part, are doing very well. I think that our growth is basically a reflection of what's happening in this industry.
Now, you were part of the business task force that was formed to increase the film and video business in the state. One of the things that this task force, or the first thing that we did, was to do this study. Why was it important for us to do that?
Well, the study is a real important piece of background information for policymakers, people at the state, to actually recognize that we're an industry, not to mention municipal governments. It's also important for our industry organizations locally and nationally to have that information so we can plan for the future of, for instance, the Association of Independent Commercial Producers and International Television Association and in my case, the International Teleproduction Society. Those groups can use this information and combine it with other surveys around the country to see where we're at in a national scale. And it really is a basic document for planning.
Tell me, I know we've talked about this just a little bit, the future of this industry is wide open. And there's been a lot of changes, and we're going to see a lot of changes in the future. Tell me a little bit about what you see happening in the near future.
Well, I certainly wish I could conjure up an image of it, and a lot of us wish we could, but I think that there is such opportunity with the advent of what you might call new media, digital media, and that represents itself in many different ways, yet unknown even, ways unknown. And we have, coming down the road, I think, within maybe 2 years to 3, we'll start to see some real significant changes in how that is manifested in production. How companies use it, whether it's for promotion, advertising, or for internal communications in corporations. We're right at the cusp of some significant changes, and I can't wait to see it happen because I think that our industry is going to benefit significantly from that.
Is Minnesota's industry well prepared for the changes? Do you think that we're sitting in a good place to take advantage of all the stuff that's going to happen?
There's no question, because we have seen through people that come into this state to work with us a couple of key advantages here. The people are number one. We have some of the best production people and creative in the country. There are some, offsetting or disadvantages, being the environment, which some people can work with as an advantage, but generally, if you don't want to shoot in the winter, it's a hard place to be. But we have seen consistent feedback on the quality of the people we have here, the quality of creative, the attitude. It's kind of a Minnesota culture thing, and that is what a consistent pattern over my 12 years in the commercial side of this business. It's been very positive.
And facility-wise, equipment-wise, the things that we've been investing in are positioning us well also?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's a whole range of that. I mean, we're a larger facility, but there are loads of talented people working out of their homes and very smart. We're a computer-oriented state. A lot of that new technology is generated and used here. And I think there's a whole broad range of talent coming up that's going to be able to take advantage of these new opportunities.
As an industry in the state of Minnesota, what do you think we need to do, need to work on specifically, maybe with these organizations that we have? What's the next step? Now we have these numbers. Where do we go from here?
Well, there's a few things. I think nothing's ever perfect. And from my own experience in dealing with the state relative to sales tax and other things, I think there's a general, there's really not an awareness of what we do. And they categorize us incorrectly, some of us, and has made it difficult to compete with neighboring states and other states that tax us differently, particularly sales tax. It's a hard nut, because you can't just eliminate sales tax because you have to make up the revenue somewhere else. So it's a hard question, but we have to deal with that because we are losing, in some cases, competitiveness because of that. I think that there's another interesting factor I want to get into here, a little about our good quality people. We have seen the IRS go through our industry, or at least begin to audit us relative to independent contractors or freelancers or part-time, however you want to categorize that. Fortunately, some local groups and national groups got together and actually had a policy change at the national level, IRS, very precedent-setting decision to give us guidelines on how to classify people, because there's a host of people out there that work freelance in our industry that were being treated in many different ways, and now we have some real concrete things to go after it. That was an example on a national level of some things that work to improve our situation. And I would hope that, on the state level, we can have similar kinds of things go on to help us categorize and make us more categorize these positions and make us, and taxes, and make us more competitive around the country.
We need to be competitive. It's
Absolutely. I mean,
critical.
we're not just competing within this state. We're literally competing sometimes internationally. And
Absolutely.
it's important.
Thanks for your insights here, Bill. I appreciate your coming on and talking about the study, and also thanks for your help with the study as we went through the process. It was
Thank you.
quite a learning experience.
That's great.
Thanks for being here. You'll be seeing some of the highlighted economic impact facts on artifacts today, but if you'd really like to study the study, call 673-2550. Well, in my job, I get to see the film and video work that Minnesota companies create on a regular basis. But it occurred to me that many people don't get to see that work or have no idea that what they see on television may very well have been produced here in Minnesota. So I decided to put a sample reel together. You'll see productions created by members of Minnesota AICP, that's the Association of Independent Commercial Producers, and Twin Cities ITVA, that's the International Television Association. Those are the folks that do a lot of the corporate work in town. What you'll see is just a snapshot of the fine work that's made in Minnesota. Enjoy.
You're going directly to jail, fella. Don't pass go. Don't collect $200.
Oh.
Monopoly, a nice, ruthless, money-hungry family game.
At Target, we're serious about defending your budget. Doing whatever it takes to reject high prices. Target, expect more, pay less.
I was blocking shots while you were still in diapers, you...
Imagine a diamond-shaped structure that makes roads brighter and safer at night. Microscopic fibers that help protect workers from airborne particles. And a kitchen sponge that stays fresh and odor-free by killing bacteria on its surface. There's one company that imagined all of these and more. More than 60,000 innovative products from more than 100 technologies and more than 80,000 creative minds around the world. Imagine 3M, where we not only imagine it, we make it real.
Great wine. You gotta love every grape.
Companies have copied each other. Maybe that's why all brands seem the same. Except one. Biker Blues. The Harley Davidson of blue jeans.
96, 97.
When a cold keeps you awake, no one offers more nighttime relief than Alka-Seltzer Plus Nighttime, with a taste NyQuil users prefer nearly 2 to 1.
Introducing High Stakes, the new $5 instant game from the Minnesota State Lottery, with 5 casino games on every ticket and a top prize of $100,000.
Dad, why do parents always say we'll see?
At Gabbert's, we know the best times often happen around the table.
Parents say we'll see when they want to think about it, son.
And at Gabbert's, we have the tables and chairs people like to gather around.
I think they say it when they don't want to say no right away.
Say, honey, you gonna get the basement clean today?
We'll see.
By the time construction began on the IDS Tower, we had almost $8 billion in assets under management. The topping out ceremony was held on September 2nd, 1971. When the 775-foot tower was completed, IDS had more than $9 billion in assets under management, and we entered the institutional market with the formation of IDS Advisory. The new function...
With Anderson's new art glass collection, your design options are only limited by your imagination. Because with windows like these, whose thoughts wouldn't be inspired?
So you say you want a revolution? Then come together at Best Buy, where right now you'll find the first new Beatles song in 25 years, free as a bird. It's on the Beatles Anthology Volume 1, a new 2 CD set.
Joe Siegel calls it earth-shattering, bone-rattling, non-stop tummy-quaking fun. Starring Mom, Dad, and the kids, destined to be part of entertainment history. Valley Fair, now playing. Rated E for excitement.
Talked to my friend the other night. He said things weren't going right. Things were going in and out of style. Everybody was running wild. All the kids on the streets were high.
For the past 100 years, people have been looking to us to help them get the most out of their investments today and down the road. Piper Jaffray, looking toward the future since 1895.
No one stands on ceremony in Valley Grove. They don't come to dance with the bride or witness young love. They come for the cake. One of Leona's creations made with crystal sugar. The sugar that's so trusted, brands like Betty Crocker use it every day.
Yeah. Open up, darling. Your hunk of burning love is here.
The champagne's not Corbel.
Well, he's one that's going to be missing out right there. I'm going to bring in love and caviar champagne's not Corbel. Well, so what?
The store. Hudson's Jubilee sale. No wonder they celebrated.
Power that is focused, scaled precisely to your challenge. The power of scalable processing from Cray Research.
This is the story of the lost Twin Cities.
Where will the next great movement in popular music come from?
Oh, honey, you should have asked me this a long time ago. The next one is going to be a little something like, I'll give you a little feel of it.
Sometimes life calls for deeper answers. That's why there's CompuServe.
This Pioneer brand soybean is the result of years of research. It carries the best traits and delivers higher yields. So in the end, You harvest the rewards.
Together there's no stopping us. The clouds can't hold us down. You know we'll end up right on top. Together, it's amazing what we can do together. We can change things when we work hand in hand.
Starts with a single step.
Yeah, starts with a single step. How are you gonna do it? Who are you gonna do it for?
Starts with a single step.
From the people who brought you Hershey's chocolate syrup and strawberry syrup comes new Hershey's chocolate malt syrup.
What? You never heard of a chocolate malted milkshake?
New Hershey's chocolate malt syrup.
And where the ashes of that immense history still dust a landscape lodged forever between past and present. This summer, come to a land where the wind still carries the echoes of distant times, and where they say at sunset, warriors still circle dancing flames.
For Minnesota has a history which is rich in tales of daring enterprise, of faithful endurances, of high hopes.
Ramsey's foresight was Minnesota's gain. His unique vision was the seed which grew to become one of the premier historical societies in the nation. Soon, the Society's exhibits, collections, libraries, and educational programs will be joined under one roof. The new Minnesota History Center will invite visitors to discover Minnesota stories for themselves and to look beyond library shelves and museum walls for a glimpse into the past. It will become a window in time.
From the dawn of civilization to the height of human achievement, one epic piece of literature has withstood the test of time. Once, maybe twice, 3 times tops, in each millennium does a collection of information and wisdom capture the imagination of humankind and change its course forever. Such is the case with the Best Buy Employee Orientation Handbook.
Next time, call Allied!
Allied Van Lines, utterly obsessed with the care of your belongings.
Oh no, I think we're lost. Whatever shall we do? Oh look, it's the Good Fairy. She'll know what to do.
Not to fear, little children. I will help.
Should have used Stren. Stren, the most dependable fishing line in the world.
Well, you've just seen a sample reel of TV commercials, corporate videos, music videos, TV programs, and multimedia presentations, all produced in Minnesota by Minnesota companies. And this was just a small example of the fine work produced here day in and day out. Now, the reel was put together as a visual complement to the 1995 Economic Impact Study of the Minnesota film and video industry. For a copy of the study, you can call 673-2550. And for more information on the study, you can call 673-2947. And having seen that, which was very exciting, I'm also very glad to have as a guest on this show somebody I've known for a little while, but who's affiliated with what I might call kind of a quiet institution, but it's a vital one and goes back to early history here in Minneapolis. Let me introduce Beth Burns, who is the Communications Director?
Yep.
Okay, I got that one right. Over at the MacPhail Center for the Arts.
Correct.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
And I don't mean that in any negative sense. I think most of us take MacPhail for granted because it's been here longer than most of us have been alive. Can you just ground us a little bit on the history of MacPhail?
Sure. I can also tell you why I think that why we are a quiet organization.
Yeah, okay.
MacPhail was founded in 1907 by William S. MacPhail, who was also a founding member of the Minneapolis Symphony Orchestra. So we have a very long history with the Minnesota Orchestra. Our proximity to the organization, that's really nice. We've had a great relationship with them over the years. Willie MacPhail had every intention of just starting a violin school, teaching a few violin students to supplement his income with the orchestra. And what happened was it blossomed and bloomed, and pretty soon he didn't know what to do. He had a studio filled with violin, viola, cello, piano, and voice. So in 1922, he went looking for money to build a music school. No one in the Twin Cities really believed that it would be possible for a music school to make it on its own, so he had a very hard time finding investors for this MacPhail School of Music, as it was called at that time. What happened was he went to Boston and found investors who were willing to put up the money for a music school on the corner of 12th and LaSalle, which is where we're still located. And the one contingency of the deal was the building had to be built so that if the music school failed, the whole building could be converted to storefronts. So if you ever drive by 12th and LaSalle, you'll see that we have the big storefront windows in the front of the building and doorways off of all the first floor rooms. And so it's kind of strange architecture for a music school, but we're also very proud to say there's never been anything but music happening in the building.
Well, and just that anecdote too, I mean, what Minnesota practicality.
Right.
In case it doesn't work, let's put some stores in there. That's a great story.
Exactly.
Well, and I know that in that early era, the 20s and 30s, I mean, MacPhail was right up there with Juilliard and the other premier schools of music.
At that time, we were a degree-granting institution also, which is different than how we are now. We've had a number of different types of MacPhail over the years. We went from being William MacPhail's business, the violin school, to the MacPhail College of Music, which was a degree-granting program that has left thousands of the band directors, orchestra conductors, and choral directors around the state. They have their music degrees from the MacPhail College of Music. And we granted degrees through 1966. And in 1966, we were given by the MacPhail family to the University of Minnesota because the founder had died, and the family was interested in MacPhail thriving and continuing to move forward, but didn't feel that they personally had the resources to carry on that really great tradition of music. So in '66 was when we became part of the University of Minnesota's continuing ed programs, but you already had a College of Music, so they couldn't have two degree-granting music schools. So we spent 30 years just kind of quietly humming along as the little toe on the University of Minnesota, and then last year, July of '94, we separated again, and now we're embarking on this new MacPhail, a new 87-year-old MacPhail, where we're now an independent organization again for the first time since the '60s, and we still don't grant degrees, but we are definitely humming along. We're serving more than 6,000 students this year. So.
Yeah, you were saying something about just looking up some of the attendance figures and what growth you've had, like through '95 or something.
Right. Yeah, it's been really fun to be at MacPhail during this time of transition. The university was wonderful to MacPhail in that they gave us 5 years to get ready to separate, and that gave us 5 years to get ready to raise money, which we'd never had to do before. So we went from $12,000 in fundraising in 1988, and this year we raised $700,000.
Well, that's a bit of a bump.
That's a bit of a bump, yeah. And we've got a great development director, so that helps.
Yes.
And then student enrollment, we were all a little skeptical about, how much value do our students place on being affiliated with the University of Minnesota? And what we found is they place the value on being a MacPhail student. So what we have seen is enrollment growth from anywhere to 10 to 22% just in this last year among our student population, depending on division. Our Suzuki program, for instance, is just falling out the walls. There's so many students right now.
Well, and I've got to believe that stems from one important feature, and that is that you have a very high caliber of faculty and staff that works. I've looked at the roster, and just the names I recognize are, without exception, really good.
It's really amazing, and the faculty are what MacPhail is. I mean, we have this great building. We're located downtown. We have this great history, but what we are is we teach music. And getting back to why we're a quiet little organization is so much happens behind closed doors. It's one-on-one music lessons. It's relationships with a teacher that help you bring out the musician in yourself. And those aren't big opening night concerts.
Yeah.
Those are the important day-to-day ongoing process of music rather than the big slam-bang opening night things. But what happens is every week, 110 faculty members are really doing their best with our students, and
well, speaking
they're
of
amazing.
that, Beth, you were nice enough to bring over a little clip, and we're going to just take about a minute sample here of some of that work with, I think in this clip, mostly young people. So let's take a look and just see what actually goes on amongst other things.
Great.
Multidisciplinary early childhood arts classes explore music from many cultures. In several classes, like Musical Trolley Together, both children and parents participate.
Come aboard the musical trolley, we'll have a jolly time. Toot toot, ding ding, oh, I like that.
Individual instruction in all instrument areas, voice and drama, is taught for students of all ages and all levels. MacPhail's internationally renowned Suzuki Talent Education Program is based on the strong relationship between parent, teacher, and child. Classes in a variety of musical styles enhance students' understanding of music history, theory, and composition. Advanced students may take advantage of MacPhail's preparatory program, master classes with world-renowned musicians, and workshops on specialized subjects. At MacPhail, students participate in a variety of formal concerts and informal recitals. Conferences, clinics, and residencies are available for music educators and their students throughout the state.
Well, of course, that was just a little smidgen of what goes on over at MacPhail, so thanks for providing that. But that leads to the other point I was going to make, and that is with all of this increase in participation, that must be good for the bottom line. I mean, earned income must be pretty high.
Tuition makes up the bulk of how we raise the revenues to pay the teachers, keep the building warm in the winter, and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's translated into a very healthy period for MacPhail right now. We're doing well, and the fundraising makes a big difference too.
That's great. Quickly, because we've only got about a minute left, some very famous people, some very prominent people in the industry have come out of MacPhail. Can you rattle off a couple?
Yeah, sure, I'd be happy to. Lawrence Welk is a MacPhail grad. He had studied at MacPhail. Chris Osgood, who's very active over at RCA.
Yeah, Resources and Counseling in St. Paul, sure.
Yes, he actually is a MacPhail student who's now teaching at MacPhail. He and Chan Poling, who is a member of the Suburbs Rock Band, are teaching a songwriting for pop musicians class this year, so they've sort of come full circle. Gretchen Carlson and B.B. Shop, Miss Americas.
Miss Americas.
They both studied violin at MacPhail. So.
Well, excellent. Now, before we go, if people wanted to find out more about activities, classes, or just what's going on at MacPhail, there's a phone number?
Yeah, 321-0100, and that's our registration office, and they'll answer any question. If you don't know what you're doing, but you know you like music, that's the number to call.
Beth, thanks for the overview on the MacPhail Center.
Yeah, it's fun to be here.
Nice to have you here.
To do it.
Thanks. Now, I'll be back with Jim Schiller. He's the publisher of the Minnesota Arts Directory right after this. Stay tuned. Well, a lot of good information in that economic impact study on the film video industry, and that was just a snippet of information from it. My next guest is publisher, editor Jim Schiller. He's here to talk about the Minnesota Arts Directory. Jim, thanks for being on the show.
Yes.
Now, this is a great resource, but for those folks out there who are unfamiliar with it, I want to start right at the beginning. Here it is, January 1996, but it's time to think about art fairs, craft shows, and all this.
Right.
What does your directory talk about?
Well, basically what we do is we publish a list of arts and crafts, fairs, festivals, events in the state of Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa, North and South Dakota. It's a regional directory. and we have something like 1,200 different events.
That's huge.
It is huge, and they're happening all over. There's 25 on a weekend. It doesn't matter where you go, you're going to find one. A lot of small communities will have festivals that have an arts and crafts component with the event, and we provide that information so that people who want to be a vendor, who want to sell their work at some small festival somewhere, can find out how to do that and get in touch with these people and get into that event.
Right, so the artisans, the crafts people have that. You also have a neat sort of adjunct. The back pages is a pretty significant resource listing as well.
Right, there we have about 650 listings of artists' organizations, businesses, services, suppliers, artist studios, performing artists.
Yeah.
So what we try to do is it's an entry point to the arts is how we think of it. There's people from all over the state of Minnesota, all over the region, who look to Minneapolis and St. Paul especially for arts activities and want to know where they can find resources, and this puts it all together for them.
Jim, you're nice enough. There's an interesting sort of genealogy to how this came about. You brought some,
I brought some
sort of the
old
history
stuff,
here.
Right?
Yeah, why don't you show us what you brought here?
What we have here, this is the very first issue of the Art Fairs Directory for the state of Minnesota, and this was produced by the Minneapolis Institute of Arts Arts Resource and Information Center, which you worked for at one time.
Oh, a long time ago.
And this is it. This is 1977's list of art fairs for the state of Minnesota.
Looks like you might have a dozen and a half there, maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's come a long way, and this is the current issue that's out, and our next issue will be out at the end of this month.
Yep.
This one has, like I said, 1,200 different arts and crafts shows, fairs, festivals, events.
Yeah.
And,
now, what you're holding is a preview you put out in the fall prior to the upcoming year.
We have 2 issues per year, one in February and then one in August. And people get a hold of this August issue because the fall of the year is actually the busiest time of year. There's more activity in the fall than there is throughout the spring and summer.
You mean out at the sites? Okay.
Art fairs, festivals, and events during the September, October, November of the year.
I would have never guessed that. I would have assumed spring going into deep summer or something.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah,
But I was surprised to learn that's not the case.
Sure. Before I forget, if people wanted to get hold of this or maybe get themselves listed in there, there's a number they can call to find out more about your directory?
Yes, the number is 871-0813.
Okay, now that number once again for the Minnesota Arts Directory is?
871-0813.
Okay, that's great. And they'll get a line there and you'll tell them how they can get involved.
Right.
That's great. One of the things I've noticed in looking through your listings is that there's something going on, obviously during the fall, which I didn't know the extent there. There isn't a month, though, that there isn't something going on somewhere in Minnesota or the region.
Yeah, January, International Falls, Duluth, Vasa Lopet, you name it. There's stuff going on everywhere.
That's right. So. Maybe a little off-the-wall question, with your kind of knowledge of what's out there in the field, as it were, is there anything that's particularly surprising or that absolutely thrilled you? I mean, what's the weirdest, most unusual fair or festival you've ever heard of?
Oh, as far as unusual, well, one of the ones that I really like is the Phelps Mill Festival.
Not familiar with that.
That's up near Fergus Falls, Minnesota, and they have an old granary mill, grain mill up there, and they fixed it up, and on the grounds they have hundreds of exhibitors. Also, Little Falls, Minnesota is actually probably the largest event. You would think the Uptown Art Fair is.
Well,
probably has 300,000 people at the Uptown Art Fair.
That's right.
Little Falls has something like 1,000 exhibitors. So you can go 2-3 days and not see it all.
That's an amazing figure.
You go into a little park and there's another 100 exhibitors. You go into another little park and there's another 200 exhibitors.
Well, I've got to believe with all this activity spread throughout the state, this is quite the economic opportunity for our craftspeople, our artisans.
Right. And as a matter of fact, I think a lot of the sort of chambers of commerce, Kiwanis clubs, Lions clubs, Women of Today, etc., look at this kind of an event as an economic tool. As a way to build their community events.
Great.
It brings in revenue, it brings in people from way out of state. So it's a good way to develop your community events, is to have some kind of arts and crafts component to the event.
Well, and you've got a great resource to help people do that. Jim Schiller, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Pleasure to do it. Look forward to seeing the issue later this month.
Right.
Okay. Now, my next guests are Ruth MacKenzie and Brooke Portmann. They'll be here to talk about the piano and the song. This is being held down at the Plymouth Congregational Church, and we're going to listen to them right after this economic impact fact. Well, it's just a fact a minute here, but those are good facts to know about that economic impact study. So if you're interested, call that number that we told you earlier and find out more about it. Now, I'm very excited actually to have my next two guests because there's a very interesting series of programs that are going to be starting up later this month, and I've got just the people to talk about. Brooke Portmann, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
She is the producer of this series of events that she's going to talk about and the head of Abondia Center. And Ruth MacKenzie, the shy retiring Ruth MacKenzie, who's a singer well known in town. And you're going to be talking about a program called, or a series of programs called The Piano and the Song. Brooke, why don't you just start us out with some real basics? How did this get started? Why did you decide to do this?
Create the piano and the song, or the Abondia Center? If I go
well,
with
this
Abondia
is part of the
Center
Abondia
first,
Center.
Right. Abondia Center was developed because out of 20 years experience working in the arts, I kept looking at what was happening between audiences and artists as they performed and thought there was a gap.
Okay.
And wanted to provide a number of experiences where audiences and artists could come together over discussion about artworks, not contesting what they were interpreting, but in fact in a discussion, in an analysis and an enjoyment. So I created Abondia Center, which then develops a series of programs in a variety of art forms. Right now we're focusing on music, and the program you're talking about, the piano and the song, will bring together pianists and vocalists, singers like Ruth MacKenzie, together over song and with audiences to talk about what's happening.
Right, in some depth and in particulars.
Exactly.
Right. Now, I should declare briefly a little interest here, because I do serve on the board of Abondia Center, although I have no programming involvement with what you're doing here. Now, Ruth, how did you get involved in this particular program? The phone rang, and on the other end was Brooke, or?
Well, not quite that direct. I had met Tom Linker, who is the pianist that's working for this particular series, and he was talking to me about Brooke and had asked me to come see another series that they were working on. And I was so excited by what I was witnessing, because it was such a really exciting, not only was the music exciting because the performers, Libby Larson and Tom Linker, were the two people that happened to be performing that evening. Not only was that just exciting unto itself, but the fact of then what started happening in the discussion between the artists and the people who had come that evening was wonderful.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a discussion about art that was superficial. It was very depthful and intricate discussions, and it was great to hear both Libby and Tom talk about their approach to something and then hear it.
Well, that's quite an endorsement, I have to say, you know, for Ruth MacKenzie to see that and say, geez, I like that, I'd like to be part of it. That's pretty impressive.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
I talked to Ruth afterwards, and Libby, so we let folks know Libby Larson is a composer, and Tom was performing some of her music, and we also listened to some of her music on tape. And that particular series was called Listening Live, and we do a number of those, which is strictly instrumental.
Okay, and you did these prototypes, if I may call them that, in Greater Minnesota.
That's right, in Stillwater and in New Ulm. And there were 5 sessions, open to the public, and sponsored in both those communities by the libraries, by the public libraries.
But now, starting late this month, Minneapolitans, Metropolitan Twin Cityans get a chance. Tell us some of the particulars. Where's it going to be, when?
It's going to be held at Plymouth Congregational Church. It's co-sponsored by the Schubert Club and Plymouth Church Fine Arts Board. And they are sponsoring it on January 25, February 1, and 8. It's a series of 3 sessions. The first session will be with Janice Hardy, Maria Jetty, and Tom Linker. The second session, Ruth will be there with your singing with Janice and Tom Linker. And the third session will be Cindy Lohman and Ruth and Tom Linker. And each evening will be hosted by Bill Morlock, who is the Bill of Bob and Bill of NPR.
Okay,
So
great.
that's the series.
What a lineup. That sounds wonderful.
going to be exciting. They're wonderful singers. I mean, Minneapolis is filled with terrific singers, and we, get to have 4 of them, and I think
it's why we stay here through these long winters.
Exactly. Well, this is sort of like a cabin fever blues pickup. In late January.
Well, last month we had the opportunity to come down to Plymouth Church and watch Ruth and Tom in rehearsal. Now, this is just a little snippet here, but the crew went off and I think did a really nice job at capturing you guys in an early morning rehearsal. So why don't we take
Very early.
And bless you. So let's take a quick look at that. It's a nice piece, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit more about this series.
I hate to see the evening sun go down. Way, 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 way down. I hate to see that evening sun go down. 'Cause that man of mine, he done left this town.
On this one, you're gonna wanna just follow the score in terms of just keeping the groove, the pulse, and letting me. I'm not going to be singing this.
No,
or I'm
you're
going to really.
play around with
yeah, I'm going to be
put it where you
stretching
want.
out.
But you want me to play.
Yeah.
Pretty much what's here.
Fairly, yeah. Much.
Okay. Except but it's got to have a groove to it more than it does in the original.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, not too much, because I really like the flavor of the of what he's got going and how he harmonized the right hand.
St. Louis woman with the diamond rings, upset man around, apron strings.
Not as heavy as you did over here, but
it should have more.
It should still have some groove feel, because I'm doing such a heavy vocal thing, that whole growl, and if you are not, if you're supporting that, I think I'm kind of sounding like a dip.
Okay, if that's the way you feel, that's fine.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Sometimes I hear a neighbor snoring.
You don't want it to be then on the snore. You're wanting to be ing.
Yes.
Okay, well, heck, we can put that together. I thought you were telling me you wanted to be on the snore.
No, I mean the ing.
Okay.
It's just that it's supposed to be the snore.
Funny, with so many neighbors, how lonely it can be.
What about this section here?
Yeah, you wanted to back off. Did you try to back off here for...
I waited.
The night, for me, is not romantic.
Yeah, I waited.
See, this is one thing that I think is an interesting thing concerning this piece, is the fact that I think in blues or jazz, the pulse stays the same. And I was waiting for you, because I was going to make a run at it, and you waited for me.
I waited for you.
Yeah. So
do you think that we should just go at it without holding?
No, well, yeah, a little on your end. I think you waited a little long.
Okay, let's try it.
Okay.
Can we go from
Evens?
In this lonely
There's some good parts.
There's some good parts.
Well, that was a nice look at a little bit, just a teeny bit about what people will get out of when they go and see this sort of thing. I want to commend the crew, too. I like that kind of NYPD style of filming. That was good. And thanks to you for coming to like a 6 a.m. rehearsal. That was darn early.
Yeah. Yeah, my face was saying, don't put makeup on me, don't put makeup on me.
Well, maybe both of you can talk a little bit more about what is it, the audience, and they're almost participants in a way. They're engaged in this. What will they experience once this series starts?
Well, I'm hoping that one of the things that we'll talk about is the 2 evenings that I'm performing. The first one, I believe, is on form. And I am hoping that people start getting a chance to understand the form of music in a very visceral way, because we're going to take something, a blues form, a simple blues form, and just let people get a sense of how does a blues work, and that's things that we just naturally associate the blues with, or something that sounds bluesy. They're going to start understanding it within a form that we explain and can demonstrate, and then let them listen to it and say, now how's this one different? And then take maybe a Kurt Weill piece, which is what people had just heard, and Janice is intending to perform it just straight up as written, and then now what makes it sound bluesy? And then I'm going to perform it kind of outside of the written music.
Sure.
So people get a chance to start really exploring that.
Influenced by the blues.
Yeah.
And that's what you do is let that influence in the rest of the music that you sing, which I think is what's fascinating.
Yeah, and I noticed the interplay there between the singer and the arranger, the pianist there, as it were. I mean, there's just a lot of giving forth that takes place.
Right, and in the course of the evenings of each of them, that's part of what both the singers and the pianists will talk about with the audiences about how they've worked that out, because each duo will be different, and how they work the problems out and the solutions out will be different.
Now we've got about a minute left, and before we get out of here, I want to make sure people know how they can find out more about this. And Brooke, there's a phone number people can call?
That's right, they can call the Schubert Club at 292-3267.
Okay, now that number again for the piano and the song is?
292-3267.
Okay, and we'll have that up on the screen so people can call that. It sounds like a wonderful thing. And you do touch on a lot of genre there. I mean, there's contemporary music, there's classical music.
Classical music, Broadway musicals, popular song. There'll be everything. And the reason for 2 singers each night is so that people can hear the difference, how 2 different singers would approach the same kind of music, and learn then a lot more from it.
Yeah, and I sense that this is, besides a musical artistic experience, there's what I would call kind of an element of the humanities. There's a learning aspect to that. Is that part of what is conscious?
Clearly conscious, because it's both performance, but it's also it's education, but in a very informal way, and in a sort of lived experience. And I think that's what you experienced tonight when Ruth came to Listening Live. It's very comfortable.
Let me ask you both a question, maybe starting with Ruth. You're a performer, you're a successful career person in your field. This isn't a loaded question. We need this to develop audiences, but why? Is there a problem out there that people aren't learning about music and song? Is the literacy, the musical literacy at an ebb? What's going on out there?
I think what's really great about this is I do a lot of teaching in doing artisan residencies where I go in and talk to kids or let them experience music. And what I found over the 10 years that I've been doing that is more and more people are getting used to being fed something but not being able to respond to it. And this is really going to be a great opportunity where people can talk and respond. We're always being fed things from the TV or from, so we're just blops on a couch. And this really is going to be a wonderful time for people.
And the other thing is that oftentimes artists have held themselves back, or audiences have put them on pedestals, and this is a way to say, we're human beings together, creating artwork and enjoying it.
Okay.
And that's what the other experience is about, is to make that, unify that experience.
Relating.
Absolutely.
Performer with audience.
And there'll be desserts and coffee, and it's
you didn't mention that.
Social.
All right.
Bring 'em in.
That sounds wonderful. Okay. Well, Brooke Portmann, thank you very much.
Thanks, Phil.
Ruth MacKenzie.
Oh, thank
Pleasure
you.
to have you here. Look forward to seeing that down at Plymouth Church. Well, Janet will be back in just a moment to help me wrap up our first edition of Artifacts for 1996. She'll be here in just a moment, so stay tuned. Well, good show.
Yeah, I thought so too.
I was very impressed with what came out of that study that you did last year.
Yeah, well, you know, it was a lot of work, and we brought a lot of the community together to work on that, to write, you know, I pulled in business people to help me write a good survey, and an awful lot of people took the survey, and we worked with the Minnesota Department of Tourism on the data input, so it was a lot of people that worked on that project, and we got some excellent results, and I think they'll be really useful.
Well, as we say in the economic development field, that is an industry. The industries that you work with are industries with a future. They're growing.
Yeah, and that's exactly what Bill was talking about. I mean, he clearly, as a business person who works here and has a pretty good perspective on what's going on, he clearly sees that this is a business for the future.
That's right. Whether it's on that topic or any of the other topics we had on Artifacts this month, you'd like to find out a little bit more information, don't hesitate to call the City Cable 34 hotline, 673-2234, and we'll get you connected with whomever you want to talk with. So.
Yep, you can always call. And also, you should also take out your pen or pencil, and some paper, write down some of these events coming up. We've got a great events calendar for you, too.
That's right. And next month, by the way, we're going to be taking a look at the West Bank Theater District. We're going to go out and do a little shooting there and have a variety of guests in to talk about all the cultural stuff that's going on in the West Bank.
Great place to visit.
You bet. So, well, until then, thanks for watching Artifacts. I'm Phill Lindsay.
I'm Janet Zahn.
You got a problem?